folks, Quill18 here, and welcome to the continuation of my preview for Europa Universalis 4. This is going to be a shorter video because we're talking about the agents system, and there's not as much to say about it. It's not as significant of a change in a sense, but I still think it's a pretty good one, and it ties in very well with a lot of the theme of these meaningful and interesting decisions. So the agent system, those are people like magistrates, diplomats, spies, merchants, missionaries, and colonists that you may remember from EU3. Well, in EU3 they were currency. You accumulated them at a certain rate depending on your nation and variety of factors. They sat in a pool. They capped out at 5. You could have as many as 5 at any given time. And then when you use them, they were just expended, right? To do diplomatic action, you sort of burned a diplomat. And to send a merchant to a center of trade, you used up one of your merchants in the pool. And you sat around waiting for them to kind of regenerate so that you would be able to use them more. And, you know, that was okay. But I really like the direction that they went in EU4 here. I think you're having to sort of pick and choose how you use your agents quite a bit more. So first of all, we're going to talk about diplomats, for example. So the way it works now is they're not currency. They're actual sort of people you have kicking around. It's much more familiar or reminiscent of the council in Crusader Kings 2, right? You have your steward. You send him somewhere to, say, fabricate a claim, and then he stays there until he's done. And while he's there, you can't use him for anything else. Same thing going on here. So most nations will start with 2 diplomats, for example, and if you have one diplomat going somewhere to broker a peace deal, or not a peace deal, let's say going somewhere to improve relations, for example, well, he's going to stay there until relations are maxed out at plus 200, basically. And while he's there, you're not using him for anything else. You don't get more. You just have the 2. So if you have one going there and you have someone else generating, trying to arrange a royal marriage, well, then you've got nothing. You've got to wait for him to come back from the royal marriage so that you can assign him to, let's say, start a war somewhere. And mostly it comes down to this idea of having people spread out to improve relations. It's not a one-shot deal. Improving relations is not, you're not just spending money or something like that. You are sticking your diplomat somewhere and leaving him there for years and years and years to continuously improve relations as much as possible. And I really like that idea of deploying these people and then having to recall them. And you know, you can get in this position where you really want to do 3 things at once, but you can't. You can only do 2 things at once. So maybe what you'll do is you'll decide to get the national idea that gives you extra diplomats, which is what I did in my game as Muscovy. Even though I wasn't playing or I didn't think I was playing a particular political minded kind of game, but as it turned out I did. One of the first things I got from my national idea is +1 diplomats, and what it meant is I could have a couple of diplomats improving relations with some neighbors that I thought were pretty important, and then the third guy could be going around fabricating claims, which is another big thing that takes quite some time to do. It can take around a year basically to fabricate a claim. So all my diplomats are tied up there. Now, recalling someone from doing something like improving relations, they do come back pretty quickly. So they're not locked in there quite as aggressively as I might make it sound. But you're still having to make these decisions about where to deploy them all the time, and it's pretty interesting. It's also less micro-intensive. It always bothered me in EU3 when you hit that peak of 5 diplomats, and you're like, well, what am I going to do now? Well, here, if you've got any idle ones, then you just send them somewhere to improve relations, and you can always recall them whenever you want, and it's fine. And then it's less micromanaging. You just sort of forget about them. They keep doing their thing, and then next time you need to sue for peace, you're like, well, I better bring this guy back home so he can broker a peace deal, for example. I like that quite a bit. One of the other things, so I mentioned you can use diplomats to fabricate claims, and in fact you use diplomats for all your espionage stuff. There are no more spies at all. Additionally, magistrates are also completely gone because the role that magistrates played has mostly been supplanted by the PowerPoint system. Administrative power and so on and so forth. You use those PowerPoint systems to build buildings, for example, and little things like that. So magistrates are gone. They have no point. Missionaries, you tend to start with 1, and obviously converting a province to a religion takes quite a long time. So if you find yourself at war with someone of different religion, so for example, if you're a Christian fighting Muslim or vice versa, and you end up with a lot of provinces in your nation that are a different religion, you might want to invest in the national idea that gives you extra missionaries because you're going to be using them quite heavily to convert all the heathens. What was the other one? Merchants. So merchants, again, they're a specific number of merchants. I think most nations start with 2. Some more trade-oriented nations might start with a 3rd one, and certainly there are national ideas that will give you additional. And again, you deploy them in some trade node. And we're going to talk about trade in an upcoming video, but you deploy them in a trade node to either sort of suck gold out of it for you, or to move trade from one node to another and try to direct things to where you want it. So if you're in a position to really make a lot of money from trade, you probably want more merchants so you can keep more and more trade flowing into the trade node that you really, really care about. So there's a lot of demand for it there. Colonists, same thing. You assign a colonist in some province somewhere. I think most nations actually start with 0 colonists. You actually have to take the sort of colonial ideas to really get that ball rolling. And then you deploy a colonist somewhere, and he sits there until the colony becomes formed, right? So it depends on a variety of factors. The terrain. We'll talk about colonizing more in an upcoming video, but based on things, if it's tropical terrain, if they're hostile natives, I think the range of the province as well factors into how quickly that person can build a colony. And then once it's a colony, then it frees up the colonist, but then the colony still takes a while to upgrade into a proper province. So when I was playing, I played a test game as Portugal, and definitely one of the highest priorities I had were to get more colonists, and also those national ideas also tend to give you more a colony range, so you can colonize things that are further away. So that tied in very nicely to be able to colonize the Americas. So I had, two people building colonies in the Caribbean and one in South America, and then you just start to snowball it and try to build those colonies as quickly as possible. So those are the agents. It's not a massive change, and yet, again, it really ties in very well with the overall philosophy that I feel EU4 is built around. The idea of interesting and meaningful decisions, and really having to budget those guys, but not being kind of micromanagey as it used to be. And I also feel like it's probably a little bit more intuitive. The idea that these diplomats and colonists and things were just a currency might feel a little bit odd, but now you put them somewhere, they get the job done. It clearly worked very well for people in Crusader Kings 2, so why not try it in EU4? And I like it. See you next time, folks. Bye-bye.